I'm absolutely terrified. So, yeah, what about that?
Mhm.
Even nightmares, like recurring nightmares about it or mess.
Are you terrified right now? It doesn't matter. This doesn't matter. Um, there's always a cause for mm, those emotions. For example, if you're driving on a highway and you press on the brakes and the brakes are not there, the brake line has broken or so, there is a very good reason to be terrified that you cannot stop the vehicle. If you imagine that there is a thief hiding outside of your door or in the neighborhood close by and wants particular harm to you, there is a good reason to be terrified. I should correct that. If there is a thief or a bandit that wants you harm and you're aware of that, there is a good reason to be terrified. If you believe or you imagine or you dream that there is a thief wanting you harm and you are feeling terrified, I would say that the reason for you to feel terrified should be looked into, because your imagination is not actual evidence, does not constitute a proof that there is such a thing. Your dream, if you're dreaming, does not constitute a proof that there is actually somebody who wants you harm. So if you are terrified or when we are experiencing these emotions, of course, we are unhappy. We have to be careful not to seek solace, not to seek comfort only. Because being comforted, will have only a temporary relief to your emotion. But the process and the cause of your emotion is still there. Rather, to look into the reason, the actual evidence of what is stirring your emotion, would be the way I would approach it. Now, we often use thought and memory which is thought. To formulate a story about ourselves, about our life, about who we are and what happened to us and who did this and that to us and what trauma they did to us in the past and so on. And we carry that along. We drag it along. We hold on to these thoughts. We invite them by spinning them. And by believing the story that these thoughts weave about us, about me. This me at its root is the belief that I, this aware presence that right now is the true perceiver of this perception, am a male-female form that is existing in a world that is external to it. And then there is the story of that form, what happened to it in 1979, in 1980, etc. And it's very fearful to be a body-mind, because body-minds are mortal. And body-minds, all sorts of things happen to them. If you push them hard enough, they fall. If you put them in the water for more than 3, 4, 5 minutes, they drown. If you don't feed them, they starve. If you overfeed them, they get sick. If you don't hold them and love them and caress them, they feel very desolate and deprived if you don't give them the love. Body-minds are subject to all sorts of conditions, and they're affected by the weather. They're affected by food, shelter, and clothing, by a multitude of events affect them. And when you are a body-mind, you are at the core of the misery, and you're at the core of the terror, which is the terror of the impending ending of the body-mind. That is the core terror. Then there are diversions. There are I would say, both diversions and branches to that core terror. For example, I'm terrified of being in the street without shelter, without a job, without any friends. That's a diversion. That's a diversion terror. Is that the right way of speaking it? Diversion terror. That is calling your attention to the problem. Problem is with your house, with your money, with your job. Or another diversion terror could be in the thinking. My God, what will happen? What will happen to me if tomorrow my partner leaves me? I toss and turn, worried about that. He or she looked at somebody else, or he and she was supposed to come home at 5, came at 8. Last week did the same thing at the same day. Getting very concerned about that. That's also a diversion, because now I'm concerned about watching their schedule, talking with them, hiring a private investigator to follow them. And we live most of our life in the diversion, in the trickstery of the mind, the trickery of the mind. The core terror is the ending, my ending. And that is, if you want to get to the core, that is what the contemplation should be focused on. What am I truly? As long as you are a body-mind person, you will toss and turn in your waking state, and you will toss and turn in your night dreams. Because although in your night dreams there is a releasing of the body, a dissolving of the body to a certain extent, and a dissolving of the identity, it is to a certain extent. It's not the complete ending of the identity. There is still the me in your night dreams. Me as a mortal body-mind, me as a person, but maybe you're no longer this woman. Maybe you're a 12-year-old boy, maybe you're an eagle, maybe you are a 45-year-old singer in New Orleans, who knows? But you're still a mortal body-mind. Now you may wonder, what is he talking about? Of course I am a body-mind. I am a person. But that's not true. The person that you are, that you believe yourself to be, is an impression that appears to you. For example, how do you know the body-mind that you take yourself to be? You know the body-mind via bodily impressions, bodily sensations. You sense your legs, you sense your belly, you sense your back, you sense your hands. You also know your body-mind because you perceive it. You perceive it in the mirror, you perceive it when you look at your shoulder or your hands. And you can feel the warmth of when you touch yourself, or when you hug yourself, you feel, there's a feeling, sensation. That's how you experience your body. You also experience your body as thoughts. You have an image, maybe, or changing images. Sometimes a happy image, sometimes an unhappy image, sometimes whatever. And so you know the body-mind as perceptions, perceiving, or as bodily sensations, mostly bodily sensations, and as images. But you are not what you perceive. If you look at your hand, are you your hand? If you look at the sensation of your leg, are you the sensation, or is the sensation appearing to you? If you look at an image of yourself, whichever way image you have, are you this image, or is this image appearing to you? So if you are not what appears to you, then you are that does not appear but yet perceives. That's what you need to contemplate if you truly want to get to the core of being terrified.
It's just I felt awareness, but awareness terrifies me. I don't like it at all.
The thought of awareness terrifies you, because awareness is not something that you can perceive. It is what you are. So the thought of awareness terrifies you. Maybe you have some ideas of awareness or some. But awareness, just to define, so we know we are talking about the same thing, so we are using the word in the same way.
The endless feeling.
No.
Endless feeling.
No. By awareness, I refer to the knowing space. Right now there is a perception. You're perceiving a perception. Yes, this perception. This perception is arising in a knowing space, because without the knowing space of this perception, you wouldn't perceive. There has to be something that perceives. A knowing space. I'm saying a knowing space because it's not an object that is perceiving. There may be a thought that there is an object perceiving, but in your direct experience, there is just perception. And there is a knowingness of this perception, meaning you know that you're perceiving this perception, and you know that you're perceiving. Let me repeat, you know that you're perceiving this perception. So there is a knowingness. And you know that you're perceiving. There is a knowingness of the knowingness. Let me put it another way. This perception is arising in a space that perceives. Because if there was no space that perceives, that perception wouldn't arise, wouldn't have a space into which to arise. And this space knows the perception. And this space that knows the perception, we refer to it as I. But we make a mistake, we refer to it as I, the body. I'm just clarifying that it's not I, a body. It is I, the knowing space, the perceiving space. Same with a thought. A thought arises in a space that perceives the thought. The space has to be larger than the thought, because if it was smaller than the thought, it couldn't perceive the entire thought. Yeah, it would perceive, it wouldn't perceive I love my grandmother, it would perceive the grandma. It won't perceive I love the whole. Yes? And this space that perceives the thought I love my grandmother is always open. Why? Because if the next thought says, I want to go to visit the Niagara Falls, without any effort, that thought is also perceived. It's always on. It's like a light switch that has no, light switches have on and off. It's a light switch that has only on, no off. And it's not limited, because it's available to perceive the thought, I love my grandmother. And it's available to perceive the thought, I would love to go to California, but the problem is that I don't have enough money to go to California. I'm going to work very hard over the next 2 years and save enough money and travel to California, and hopefully I will be able to do that, because it's my dream to be in California, or to travel to California. See, you can go on and on. It's still there. You see, it's not limited. Effortlessly, you're able to perceive all what I said. That thought that just was 5 times longer, 5 times bigger than I love my grandmother. Without any effort, you were able to perceive it. Why? Because you are this boundless, infinite perceiving space, knowing space. That's what we refer to by I. Because if I ask you, what is it that is perceiving this perception, you're going to answer me, I. I'm perceiving this perception. We all refer to I as the knowing, the perceiver, the knower. But we, out of ignorance, we identify this I with a body-mind that is 30 years old, 40 years old, 45 years old, 60 years old. Oh my goodness, it's getting closer. It's awesome. We identify with a limited. All body minds are limited. We identify with a limited form. And this is where the seed of sorrow is planted. So, by awareness, I refer to the reality that perceives. I'm not referring to anything that is perceived.
No, I'm talking about something that's perceived.
Okay, so you're talking about something else, which is okay, we can talk about something else. I was just clarifying.
No, I looked at it from that perspective.
Yes.
I've called awareness this like terrifying thing that I experience sometimes.
What is terrifying you is not awareness, it's something else, which I'm not denying. I just don't know what it is, but it's something else that you perceive as terrifying. But the question is, who is being terrified? What is it that is being terrified? And of course, I am being terrified. It's terrifying me, at least that's what it is. It's terrifying me.
Yeah.
Me who? You who?
I guess the thought that's in the forefront, the voice I hear in my head.
Yes. The voice that you hear in your head has a beginning and an end. It says, boo! Boo! Whatever it says. But it has a beginning and an end. You that perceives this thought, that scary thought, have no beginning and no end. So rather than being defined or defining yourself by what has a beginning and an end, a thought, remain undefined. Go to your true self, which is has no beginning and no end. You can only define what has a beginning and an end. You cannot define that which has no beginning and no end. What appears to you is defined, and it may be very scary. Now, why would whatever appears to you very scary? Because you are vulnerable. If a bear appears to me, I'm going to be very scared. Why? Because the body is vulnerable. This bear, if it decides to charge me, meaning to charge this body is going to be very vulnerable. So I will do whatever I can to make sure that this body survives. But the question is, am I the body? I will do my best, whatever it takes, to make sure this body survives. But at the same time, I am telling you, I am not this body. I am a very good manager of the body. I'll do my best with it, but I know deep down, the body is going one direction. Let's not fool ourselves, which is okay. It's the game of Leela. It's the play. There's no problem with the play. I go to a play. Do you think doesn't a play have an end? I mean, you go to any play. After, 2 hours, 3 hours, your back is, when is the entr'acte? You want to give me another intermission. One was not enough. You want it to end. Right? It's the same thing. This body-mind dream is a play. I have no problem with it ending. But I do not end. I what? I awareness. Are you not aware? Yes, yes.
But, the thought, I feel like I'm the one putting that thought out. I'm the one who just said what it just said. I have a hard time separating from that thought.
Yes.
I closed my eyes and I decided to say that.
Yes. Well, let's look at that. So I decided to say these words. How do you decide to say the words that you say? Here I am. I have to perceive a thought that says, I love my grandmother. So I say, oh, you know what? I love my grandmother. And I decided to say that. Why did I say I decided to say that? I decided to say that I said that because that thought that I decided to say that appeared to me and I'm reciting it to you. It's a different version. Okay. You see, okay, I'm going to take it a step further, but consciousness witnesses the thought. It says, I love my grandmother. And then I'm sitting with Richard, I say, you know, Richard, I love my grandmother. Richard says, great. He perceives this great. Yeah. So this, let me go about it the other way. Yes, I decided to say, I love my grandmother. But I as what? I as consciousness, I as awareness, I as beingness. Decided to create this thought, express the thought. Look, for example, in your night dreams. Like in your night dreams, there are all sorts of events, mind events. they arise out of you, this dreamer. Tucked in bed, they arise out of you. And you perceive them. You being consciousness. I'm using the metaphor of the dreamer, you being the dreamer in the night dream, you being the dreamer, but the dreamer being consciousness. So, yes, you are right in that you chose to say what you said, but you also chose this thought to be downloaded. You as consciousness. If you are referring to I as consciousness, you're on the money. Right? But if you're referring to I as a person, that I'm having personal free will, then before we discuss whether in fact you have personal free will, we have to discuss if you are a person and if there is a person. A person is a concept. Consciousness is not a concept. A person refers to a form that is perceived. We say this is a person, this is a couch, this is another person, a couch between, and there's another person, and there is, etc. Yes? It's a way of, let's say, organizing or labeling or formulating a certain perception. So that it's a mental description and mental organization or mental classification of our perception. But awareness, you can't classify it or perceive it or think of it as what you think of is not it. Awareness is what you are, the reality of being, the reality of consciousness, the reality of presence. There is a reality to this perception. The reality of this perception is not the perception that keeps changing. Because a minute ago you were doing like this, the perception keeps changing. The reality is not a changing thing. Reality doesn't change. So there is a reality to this perception. And this is what we refer to as consciousness, awareness, I, the true I. So yes, you're right. I as consciousness chooses all choices. What they say, the ultimate chooser. The free will resides at consciousness, at the absolute reality, not at the imaginary self, the imagined me and imagined other. All the time we do that. We imagine me and we imagine others.